Okay, before we get started on our valve adjustment, if we're assembling everything, we want to check the condition of our components. Find a nice flat surface, roll your push rods, make sure that they're nice and straight. Okay, we want to take a look at the rocker arm and how it's wearing. If you're reusing a rocker arm from a head job or something to that effect, you want to make sure that it's not got any cracks in the top, that the pivot isn't worn out, and there's not excessive wear where it contacts the valve stem. We also want to check and replace whenever necessary is the lock nut. You could feel tension on it when it's on the stud. If you could spin it freely, it goes in the garbage. The pivot ball, you want to make sure that there's no excessive play, and when it fits on the stud, it doesn't move around. Okay, valve adjustment for beginners. We're going to follow the firing order, make sure that our valves are closed. Right now we're on number 1. Okay, flat tappet, adjustable General Motors engine. Zero lash does not mean you can't turn the push rod. Zero lash is the up and down movement of your push rod between your rocker arm and the top of the lifter. So we're going to bring this down to where we take out that play. The more experience you got, the easier this is, but you got to get a feel for it. There's no measurement or anything that you're going to be able to look up. This is strictly feeling, making sure there's no play. So we got no play in there. Push rod spins free. I'm going to give it a half a turn. It's the best way to do it. This one, the intake valve, could be a little bit tricky when installed, with the intake installed, because as you can see, there's not much room to get my fingers in there. So what I'll do is I'll lift up on the rocker arm and I'll get most of the play out like that. Now I can move my push rod. It's seated, 1/2 turn. This one is set. Following the firing order, we would turn the motor 90 degrees. So that was cylinder 1. Take your breaker bar and just go 90 degrees. And then we would repeat the process on number 8 and so on and so forth. We're going to follow the firing order, and we're just going to turn our balancer 90 degrees, and that's going to bring up the next cylinder in the firing order. 90 degrees. Go to cylinder 8. Same thing. Up and down play. Get rid of that slack. Make sure nothing's binding. Half a turn. Same thing. Going to use the tip of the rocker. Okay. Now we're going to just keep on that process going down the firing order. Okay, we're going to repeat the same process with the slam down bolt style rocker stud. Valves are closed. We bring it up to number 1. The process is the same. We want to tighten them down nice and even. These studs get torqued to 45 foot-pounds. So there is no adjustment without shims, but we're going to get it down to where it's tight. It'll only go so far. What we got to watch out for with this setup is clearance around the push rod and the guide plate. So we got them set. We got our guide plate where we want it. I'll torque it. 45 foot-pounds. Okay, and just like before, we're just going to repeat that process following the firing order. 1 through 8, 45 foot-pounds. Whenever possible, we want to adjust the valves with the intake off. So if you've done a head job, you're assembling the engine or whatever, it's much better to get a visual of everything and a better feel without the intake. So we don't have to worry about the tightness of the intake valve. We can see our push rods, we can see our lifters. So right now we're on cylinder number 3, and we could see the play that I mentioned before between the rocker and the actual lifter on the push rod. So using the same method, all I'm doing is I'm moving it up and down to take out the play, and that's 0 lash. Okay, you see I can't move it anymore. It's a half a turn. I'll repeat that on the intake valve. I find it important to keep it moving because you don't want to bind on anything. You want to make sure that you're seated in the cup in the lifter and seated into the rocker arm. This one's a little too far. I'll bring it back a little bit so I have a little bit of play, and I'll bring it in a little bit tighter. That's 0 lash. Give it a half a turn. That's how you set it.